Welcome to E-commerce Marketing with the Pitbulls, where we catch up with craft brands to hear their story and learn how they're growing their e-commerce channel. Today we're joined by Erica Rankin. She is the Chief Everything Officer at Brodo. So really excited to kind of jump into the digital marketing journey of Brodo. And I think that I love that title, Chief Everything Officer. I think that really matches with a lot of what our audience is, kind of going through as they start up their e-commerce journeys here. So, Erica, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Great. Could you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and about the brand?
Sure. So my name is Erica. I'm based out of Toronto, Canada, and I'm the founder and chief everything officer of Brodo, which is a functional snack company. We currently have an edible protein cookie dough in the Canadian market. It's about 120 stores. And then we did sell D2C, and that's mainly how I built my company. I launched it in December of 2019. I don't have a background in business or entrepreneurship. I actually went to school for psychology, and I was pursuing that prior to launching my business. And now I'm all in on this and I do it full time. So
that's awesome. I'm curious, how did you come up with the name Brodo?
This is a funny question that I get quite often. So I am a bro at heart. I used to do bodybuilding. So back in 2018, I was a bro. So I was very much immersed in that industry, like in the fitness industry. And there's like the bro culture, like, do you even lift bro and gym bros? And like this product specifically, I used to make for myself when I was prepping for my shows. I would make these like little protein cookie dough bites and have them in my freezer. And then I would just eat one when I wanted something sweet and I could still fit it into my diet. And about a year and a half later, I packaged it and branded it as Brodo. And that's where the name came from, because it's protein, it's functional,
That's awesome. Yeah, I love this story. I feel like it's a little bit different background, especially as you mentioned, kind of coming from a kind of different background and getting into this. So it's really, really cool.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about, you mentioned that e-commerce or D2C was kind of how you started your brand and kind of got started. The first thing I wanted to kind of cover today, I know on the site, I just went to the site and it looks like you're not shipping right now. So I'm curious kind of how you made that decision and just kind of walk me through the journey of starting up the brand with e-commerce and then kind of where you are today.
Mm-hmm. So I launched, I think, my Shopify website in December of 2019. And I remember that was like the scariest time hitting publish and not knowing what was going to happen. And I learned all about SEO and marketing. And yeah, that was a whole nother journey in itself. But again, this is a product that I loved myself, and I didn't really think about the operations side of thing. And that's just like what I learned as I went along. Selling a perishable item online is no small feat, especially in the summer. Luckily, I launched in the winter. So like 6 or 7 months out of the year, it's okay shipping. But like when it was the summertime and it was really hot, I ran into so many problems. And again, I really had no choice but to build out my company direct to consumer, because I launched 3 months before the pandemic. So the world flipped upside down. All the events I had, the farmers markets, the trade shows, all the events got canceled. I would go to retailers and they turned me away because they were opening, they were closing, they weren't taking new products. I was in like 2 stores, and out of those 2 stores, one of them shut down, they went under. And so I really turned to D2C, and I lost track of how many times I threw moldy cookie dough jars down the garbage chute, or like had to send new ones out to customers because they put in the wrong address or they weren't home and it was out in the sun for 2 or 3 days. And as I started to scale and I'm doing more volume, you run into more problems, right? That's just how it goes. And I found that as things started to open back up, like in 2022, it made sense to go retail route with the product. And also I had a minimum order quantity. So people didn't want to spend 60, 70, 80 bucks on cookie dough and shipping. And I live in Canada, and Canada is very spread out. You have like the little densely pocketed like areas. You have like Vancouver and Calgary and Edmonton and Toronto, and that's it. And for me to ship like a package from here to Vancouver was like 30 bucks, right? And I'd have to do express shipping, and it just wasn't a profitable business model. So I sunsetted that. pivoted into retail, and that was I pivoted so much I have a broken neck. But I just recently learned, though, I found a potential business partner that can make my D2C model work in Canada. So I might actually bring that back and see if it's something that could work again. But the way that I was operating it before, it just didn't work with all the pick and pack fees, shipping, all that stuff. So
I'm so excited. And then looking at your social media and just like reading about your journey, you have such a unique perspective in this. The other people we've had on our show have talked about running into the pandemic, having to completely change what they've been doing. But you just said that you were only in it for about 3 months before the world flipped upside down. So you're kind of learning in this like new world that everybody was originally probably really resistant to pivoting and changing. And you seem so open to pivoting. Can you talk a little bit about that mindset? Because I feel like there's plenty of business owners running into plenty of these issues and are just not quite as into pivoting as it seems like you're really comfortable doing.
yeah, I think it's like pivot or die. And I'm a very scrappy founder. Like, I started the business with less than 10K. I spent less than $1,500 on marketing in the first 2 years. And like, organic growth and like community building is something that's so important to me. And listening to my customers is key. Like, I have a really good relationship with them. I could send out a survey and within a few hours, I could get a couple hundred responses easy. Like, they're very supportive and open and want to help and like grow and see me grow and do well. And I think you always have to listen to them and give them what they want. And every channel is different. So D2C, my product was working really well. Like, we have these tubs of cookie dough. People would come to me, like my website, they'd find it, they'd buy it. But then when I moved into retail, I found that there were so many problems with the product. Like, it was too expensive on shelf. There were too many servings. There were some ingredients in there that retailers didn't like in the health food space. And I'm a health product. So I spend a lot of time, collecting data, talking to my customers. And, I think a lot of founders have egos and they get married to the idea of whatever their business is. And they think, this is it, I did it. It's, but usually that's not how it works. You are always, innovating and changing and evolving, and what you start with isn't what you're going to end with. And the ones that evolve with the company are the ones that are going to come out on top. And that's just what I realized. I was married to the tubs for so long. The tubs weren't working and the retailers were getting mad because the tubs weren't coming off the shelves. So like, okay, what do people want? Oh, they want single serve. Oh, they want gluten-free. Okay, they want a lower price point. One of the flavors that I had was called Piñata Party, and people thought that it was spicy for some odd reason. So it was like I tried to be too creative and it backfired. So, and I had multiple people call it Pirate Party because they just read it too quickly. And I'm like, it's like birthday cake. So,
Yeah.
but I can't be there like pitching that all day long.
Right.
And people don't want to take risks with their dollars. They want to know what they're getting. You have to dumb it down. So we actually like scrapped that whole product line and delisted them from the 100 stores we were in. And last week, I just delivered the brand new product that we spent the past 6 months working on and innovating. That's going to replace all of those tubs. So, I could have launched those tubs into 1,000 more stores, but it's not going to sell. My business isn't going to last. I'm going to get kicked out of all these stores, taken off shelf, and be left with nothing. So, yeah, I think it's important to pivot. And I wish more people were more open-minded and listen to their customers, right? Like, you have to give them what they want and make them happy and swallow your pride and do what's best for them. So, yeah.
I love that perspective. And I feel like I've asked this question before, so I'm really curious to pose it to you. When do you know the feedback is worth it? Because you'll have all day, every day. And I'm sure as much as you've done on social media, you're getting messages right and left where you're like, what? No, we can't do that. Or what is that suggestion? No, I can't make that work. Like, how do you know as a founder, like, this is actually valuable and I'm going to move towards these suggestions as opposed to some of the off the wall ones I'm sure that you get all the time?
Yeah, you can't be everything to everyone. Like, that's what I found. And, like, I get sugar free a lot. Like, can you be sugar free? I'm like, okay, eat a bowl of ice at this point because I'm vegan, I'm gluten free, I'm natural, I'm refined sugar free, I'm non-GMO, like, it's all these things. And you can't be. So I think it's just like dialing in what do you want the product to be, like really picking those points. Like for me, it's natural ingredients. That's like the big one. Functional, added protein. And then, like natural sources of sugar, like those are the big ones, and gluten-free. And I don't want it to be sugar-free. I don't want to put, like sweeteners and stuff in there. That's not what my brand is about. And that's not what I want my products to be about. So I think it's just staying true to like what you want your product or service to be. And like really going to your customers that purchase regularly from you and get their feedback, right? And look at it from a macro perspective. Like when I send out surveys, I send out like, I try to get like hundreds, like the amount of, or let me backtrack. The responses that I've gotten. So I got, I think 700 survey responses, and that all went into this decision. I didn't just listen to like 2 people and be like, okay, I'm going to make these changes. I like dug really deep and I tried to ask questions that weren't leading, and they were more like matter of fact and objective. And then from there, you can pull from all of that and be like, okay, maybe we'll make a tweak with this and a tweak with that and implement those changes. But you're not going to make everyone happy. And that's what I've learned over the past few years.
Definitely. I think one of the comments you just made that was really clarifying for me, or I want to zoom in on, is the idea of really listening to the feedback from your best customers, or the customers who are making the most purchases from you, where it's, you're getting a lot of feedback, and I'm sure a lot of it is noise, but I love that idea of like the customers who already kind of get the brand and get what you're trying to do. They're the ones who you need to now listen to and say, okay, here's the little tweaks you can make and kind of within your vision. I love that. That's a really, really cool idea.
Yeah. And I think, the ones that are the loudest are the ones that don't buy your product, is what I find. Like I get lots of people messaging me and giving me their opinion, and then I look to see if they've ever purchased, and they haven't. So it's, so I think it's, dialing down and like, messaging those who buy your product regularly. And it's like, how can I make it better for you? Right. And then their opinion matters because they're the ones that are spending their hard-earned dollars on your product.
I love that. So a lot of the brands we talk to, I feel like you maybe have kind of an opposite journey, where we talk to a lot of people who either started in retail and then, come the pandemic, said, okay, we got to change things. And okay, let's go from retail into stores, or just in general. A lot of people say, hey, easiest place to, kind of get that first foothold is to, get yourself into stores and figure that world out, and then kind of grow into e-commerce. You're kind of going that opposite way. I'm curious, obviously there's a lot of different factors with the pandemic, and like you said, you have a perishable item, so that has some of its own factors, but all else being equal, I'm curious, if you could do it again, how would you, now that you're starting to get into retail, would you start there? Would you start with e-commerce? Like, how would you describe that for a startup founder?
I would 100% recommend starting D2C, like 100%, for anyone in any industry, like any product, because it just gives you, because retail is so expensive. Let's be honest, it's making me broke. It's a very expensive channel, and you want to make sure that your product's solid before you enter retail, because once you get more distribution, if you need to make any changes to your product, the size, the ingredients, the packaging, like anything, if there's anything wrong with it and you need to make a change on like a macro level when you're in 1,000 stores, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. And it could be confusing for your consumers as well. And retailers don't love that. And with D2C, also, you get the ability to build your brand and generate brand awareness. And then, when you're in shelves or on shelves in stores, your customers are going to go in there and already know you, right? Like you're not going to be sitting there and like praying that someone's going to pick up your product and buy it. So I'm like very grateful in a way for, like, the pandemic was a blessing in disguise for me, just because I was at home alone, building a business from my apartment, and was just filming everything and building this community and, trying to be super scrappy and not spend any money on marketing, which was tough at the beginning, and it still is tough, but I was able to do it. And now my product's going into stores. People know the brand. I built a pretty established brand, especially here. Like if I'm out doing demos, people come up to me and they say, I follow you, or I know you, or I went to a restaurant with my dad for Father's Day and the waiter's like, oh, I follow your Instagram page, Roto. And, so it works, and you build out that recognition. And then also it gives you leverage when you go to buyers. So say you want to get listed in a store and you go up to them and you're like, hey, like you should carry my product. and they're like, why should I carry your product? It's going to cost you $10,000 a SKU. Why should I carry it? And they're like, actually, I have a big community and I'll post about you all the time. And all these customers are going to go into your store. And when they buy my product, they're going to buy a bunch of other ones. So you're going to get more money at the end of the day because I'm sending my community to you. So that's another thing that I found very valuable as well, is that, you're bringing them a community. They should need you too, right? Like, it's not one-sided. So definitely D2C, starting with that channel, helps a lot, and it just opens doors for you.
That's awesome.
I love that perspective, and valuing the community, of course, for the feedback and just getting to build that, but also as an asset if you decide to transition into retail. I think that's such a smart way to look at it. I wanted to ask too about your scrappy marketing. If you're starting from the beginning, if this is, you were in your apartment alone getting this together, what would you tell someone who's going to start building a community like the one that you have? What are some mistakes that you made or things you wish you knew ahead of time? Because I find that too, this is like the coveted thing that a lot of people wish that they could form around their brand, and not everybody's great at it.
Mm-hmm. I think so. I have a different, I guess, perspective on this. I got on LinkedIn like just over a year into having my business. And I wish that I got on there sooner. Cause it would have, well, it's, it's still a community, but it's different, right? It's more so B2B. But in turn, like, a lot of those people on there can turn into customers, and you have your own little community there. And then you have like TikTok and Instagram and communities there. So each platform's a little different, but if I were to go back in time and do things differently, getting on there, and then just getting more comfortable with showing up on social media. Like, I used to be, even doing this, I used to hate, like, I would like write a whole script before going on podcasts, and I would shake. I wouldn't be able to eat all day. Like, I was just a nervous wreck. Now I'm fine. It's all good, But I took a little bit of time to start like posting, just because I was so insecure and I had low self-esteem and I didn't know what people would think of me. And I wish I just fully embraced it from the beginning and just leaned into it. And, I did eventually. And I got over the cringe, because I know that's what a lot of people say is like, I want to post, but it's cringy, or like, what will my friends think of me? Or, I have friends who have like TikTok burner accounts, and they put out content on there, and they're like, I pray that it doesn't reach my friends or family on the For You page. And I'm like, well, if it does, whatever, you're doing something that's cool. And, I don't know. I think people get weird about that because they just care so much about what other people are going to think of them. And I did get over that, but it took a long time. And even when I was putting out content on TikTok consistently, it's really hard putting out content when you're getting no views. And then you get people who are making fun of you in the comments.
Yeah.
And I always tell this story. Like, I spent so long making this one TikTok, and it got 3 likes. And then someone commented, and they're like, damn, 3 likes, that's rough. We're literally right in the comments. So, like, I think it's hard. You just have to like keep pushing through. And then eventually, like, if you don't quit, you're going to win, and you're going to build, and people are going to, they're going to find you. And that's all it is just showing up every day. Right.
When did you start to know or tell yourself, okay, I think I have something here. Okay, I think this is starting to work. Was it the amount of likes? Was it a certain comment? What was it that you were like, okay, this is worth my effort, putting all of these TikToks and things out there?
So with TikTok, I got on there because my best friend built her whole business on there, basically. And I had an ego, and I was like, that's stupid dancing app. I'm not going on there. This is ridiculous. And then I hung out with her, and all I hear is like cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching from her Shopify. And I look at that, and I'm like, okay, I would be an idiot to not go on that platform. I need to go on it. So I, swallowed my pride and went on it, started making content. And it's weird because the most random videos are the ones that do the best, and the ones you think are going to pop off, they never do. And you're like, waiting, and you're like, wow, this got 100 views and no likes. And the algorithm's always changing, and TikTok has been all over the place. But I remember when I had my first viral video, I was at the kitchen making dough, and I came home and I put together like a compilation of like all these videos of the dough mixing in the mixer. And there's like a voiceover, and it's like, hey, I'm a small business, interact with this post, da, 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 da. And I woke up the next day, and I thought my Shopify was broken because it was like ching, ching, ching. And my TikTok notifications were off, and I went onto TikTok, and I had like 300,000 views on this video. And I could only sell in Canada. So imagine if I'd been able to sell to the US. I got like 150 orders in the span of like 2 days. It was crazy.
Wow.
I messaged my friend. I'm like, come over and help me fold boxes.
Yeah.
We just had like boxes all over my apartment. And I remember it was the winter time. So like I was packing orders all weekend and then just putting them out on my balcony because it was frozen, right? Like it would just stay cold. And yeah, I got it all done over the weekend. And at that time I was like, wow, this is really crazy. And then I just started posting tons of videos, addressing all the questions. Like I kept getting asked, like, do you sell in the US, or what's the story of your business? And that was when it was really cool because, you know, I was posting content pretty regularly and I finally had one that took off and it paid off. And, you know, I didn't pay for any of those orders, you know, like the ROI was huge, but again, I had to like invest my time and the mental health piece of it too, when you're getting like comments and stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's so exciting though. I feel like that's like the, you know, stereotypical, you know, weekend, a bunch of orders come in, you got to like do whatever, you know, scramble to get all the orders out the door because something went viral. Like that's so, it's such like an exciting time. I feel like that's a really like formative memory that you'll always have.
Yeah, and you know, like I've gotten better now, obviously, but I was very disorganized and I wouldn't really keep track of my inventory to a T. Like I had some in my living room in a freezer, and then I had some in the kitchen, and it was just like all over the place. And my Shopify inventory levels were not accurate at all. And I called my friend who helps me in the kitchen, and I'm like, JP, like we need to go and make dough. So like that night, like we went back to the kitchen and we were making dough till like 11 at night. And then I made sure that I had enough and I was like counting and inventory checking. Yeah, it was a very memorable time for sure.
That's awesome. You mentioned in there shipping to the US. Is there any chance we're going to be able to get any of your dough down here anytime soon?
Yeah, so this is an interesting situation that I'm in. So majority of my followers on TikTok are US based. It's over 50%. I think there's like 15% that are Canadian. So I've been putting out all this content and it's reaching US customers that can't buy. And it's really difficult shipping a perishable product across the border because you have like Texas and California, and you know, it's hard to get it there in like 1 to 2 days. And then, you know, could be left on a porch or wrong address. Or so what we're doing is going to be launching a shelf stable cookie. So it's going to be Brodo baked, little like same ingredients, same product, except a baked cookie. And then those are going to be launching later this year, early 2024, probably into the US market, and they'll be available. And then as we scale out our brand new like cookie dough bites and retailers across Canada, I might hop across the border and start with like one state and scale that into retail there, and then slowly spread that out into the US. But it's definitely a priority getting product across the border. I'm working really hard on it.
That's awesome. I can't wait to get my hands on some.
Yeah.
I was just going to suggest when you start with that one state, can you start in North Carolina? Because that's where I live, and that would be really great.
Okay, yeah, I'll make a note.
Yeah.
That's so exciting, though. And it's so interesting to be in that position where the excitement and the customers who are like really diving into your content can't buy. That must be really frustrating as a business owner to try to figure out how to get to them, because it's like they're on a totally, like there's a wall between you, essentially.
Yeah, it has been very frustrating. And even like right now, like I'm fundraising and I have advisors and stuff. And like one of them just tells me all the time, he's like, you need to figure out how to sell to the US. And I had a conversation with another founder, and you have usually like your the business and then the brand, right? And I built the brand's up here, but the business is down here, and they're not level. Sometimes it's the other way around. Like you build a really solid business, but then the brand's not built enough. So there's no, like the demand isn't met. So now I'm trying to like have the business to support the demand and the brand. And that's like figuring out how to get into the US, which makes the most sense, right? And I don't know if shipping a perishable item in the US is the best decision. So that's why we're going with the shelf stable. So I'm hoping that bridges the gap and can, you know, make everyone happy, because, you know, I get emails every day and comments and messages. When are you coming to US? When are you coming to US? Oh, like, please, can you just ship me some? I'm like, yeah, you and everyone else, sure.
Yeah.
Just you. Just that one person from social.
Favoritism, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. What about, so, I think you definitely are an inspiration on the kind of organic social side, and everybody's, looking at this, looking at kind of some of the success you've had on TikTok and some of the different channels. I feel like that's, really what a lot of people are striving to do or get out there. Have you done any like boosting or paid or anything to kind of help that along or kind of add that in? Do you have any strategy around that?
So we did some paid. I did TikTok. And again, it was just my product just wasn't working for it, right? Because of all the issues, the shipping costs, the minimum order quantity. People would have to buy like 4 big jars. And if they didn't like it, like it was a huge risk for people, right? And I got the message or emails like, can I just buy 1 jar? No, because I would literally be paying you
Yeah.
if I shipped it out. Do you know what I mean? Like it would cost me more to like I'd be in the negatives at this point. I wouldn't even be breaking even. But yeah, so I was doing TikTok ads and they just weren't really working for us. And then I did some paid ads on Facebook, which that was just like a hot mess. I'd stopped doing that. I did it for a few weeks and it wasn't working. And I think it's just partly due because of the product, it being expensive to ship, it being refrigerated, all of these problems. So I think once we launch D2C in the US, I'm going to push ads and do a lot of organic stuff. And then whatever performs really well organically, kind of lean in that direction and put some dollars behind it. But I think we have a pretty solid strategy in place for organic marketing and growing because we've done a pretty good job at that. And I just want to like really focus on community building and engaging with our customers. And rather than dumping tons of money into paid ads, like hiring a community manager and people to like engage with our customers regularly and make sure that they're being taken care of, because it's cheaper to keep your current customers than it is to acquire new ones. So how do I get my current ones to maybe buy an extra box of cookies or, like spend more on their average order? So that's kind of like our plan with that.
I love that. Yeah. And I feel like those strategies work really well together, we find, because we're pretty focused on the paid side of the house, especially Google ads. And it's like, you can tell when you're working with the brand that has that experience or has that community already built. All of a sudden now the paid stuff starts to work a lot better and you can, make that stuff stretch a lot further. So I think that's awesome. Yeah. It's a kind of use them in tandem.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Well, cool. I guess one kind of last question. We talked about a lot of different things you're doing on social. You mentioned TikTok quite a bit. Do you have like one best channel or one area that's really kind of popped off the best for you?
It always surprises people, but LinkedIn, honestly, like I think that has added the most value to my business by far. It's great, I like Instagram a lot more than TikTok now, just because of the way TikTok has gone, and it's hard to figure out who is engaging with your content on TikTok. It's like user 68351 and they have a picture of a shoe as their photo and you're like, who are you? And it's like all memes and you have no idea who it is. Whereas Instagram, it's like someone comments, I wish I had this here where I live. And then you go to their page, you're like, oh, you're in Halifax and you work out and you kind of know who's interested in your product. There's like an identity to your followers and you can send them voice notes, send them videos, get to like communicate with them. So I definitely I like Instagram for community building with customers. And then just LinkedIn has been so good at, I found investors through there, advisors, retailers have found me through there. My employee who is a rock star, I met him through there. Like it's just added value in so many ways. And it, it takes a village is what they say, right? Like you can't build a business on your own. And that has just been the best place for me to learn. And also I learn a lot and I learn not to make mistakes that other founders have made too. Like I meet founders through there, I hop on calls with them and I'm like, oh, okay, I know not to do that. And it saves me probably at this point, like hundreds of thousands of dollars just by having those conversations. So it just gives you access to people who have done what you're looking to do and so many resources.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really where most of our content goes out. And I found, especially in the CPG space, like it really does seem like there's a really good giving community of like people who just want to like help out and, comment on your posts and help, a lot of like really good, healthy relationships with some of the different founders on there.
Yeah, totally. It's great.
Awesome.
I wanted to ask you about the surveys. And so I'm assuming it's through email, like your email list. How did you build that? How did you get such a responsive community? Because 700 responses on surveys It's kind of wild to me and amazingly valuable. I think if you could sell that to somebody, that would be a big money maker. People are begging for that kind of reaction from a community. So how did you get to that point?
Honestly, I think it's just the way that I've built my brand. Like I care about my customers. And again, it goes into me taking care of the ones that are following me and getting to know them and trying to like make the experience better for them instead of me going out trying to find new ones. Like I'm not trying to pile more people into my bucket. I'm taking care of the people I already have in my bucket, you know? So yeah, like that was done just through like email marketing and then LinkedIn as well. So I think I got I posted on LinkedIn and got a couple hundred responses there. And then just through email, you know, and I think I put it up on Instagram as well. And, you know, people are more than willing to help out or contribute like a few minutes of their time to, you know, help me. So I don't know. I think when you are authentic and you post consistently on different platforms and if you're vulnerable as well, like I think I've done a pretty good job at showing people the behind the scenes and what it takes to build a business. And I have customers that have followed me since day one and they're friends now. Like I follow them on my personal Instagram and they're messaging me and we have like a different type of relationship now because they were like the first ones, like the OG bros to ever believe in what I was doing. When I like felt like an idiot for launching a cookie dough company, they're like, no, you're not an idiot. We're going to be here the whole time. And they're still here. So I think, yeah, just having that type of relationship with my audience has really helped. And when you're giving and when you're showing up for them and trying to give them the best product and experience, they're going to show up for you. So that's kind of the way that I look at it.
As you were describing that, I just imagined a fan club running around called the Dough Bros.
Yeah.
Was there any hesitation? It sounds like you started this being the front-facing founder, which I think a lot of founders kind of have some hesitation in being so visible. And it sounds like you kind of started that way. And did you ever have any kind of thoughts of like, okay, maybe I'm going to move to the background and push something up to the forward, or have you always been comfortable just being out there?
No, I'm a completely different person now than I was before I started my business. Like I was very introverted. You know, if my parents pulled out a camera, I have a picture in my room, me as a little girl with like my hands in front of my face, just as a reminder of like who I used to be and who I am now. Because I would hide, like I hated being photographed or I hated seeing myself on video. And that was just something that I did because I had to, because I had no money. And I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to grow my business? What are other brands doing? You know, they're running ads. They have beautiful product photography. And here I am with like my QB kit from Amazon, like in my ghetto camera, trying to take nice product photos. And I'm like, this isn't gonna cut it. I have to figure something else out. But I guess at the same time too, the fear of me putting myself out there wasn't enough to, I don't know how to word this, but basically, I think people who are not honest and putting out content are doing themselves and others a disservice, right? Like when I went on LinkedIn, I was looking around and trying to find someone that I could relate to, and there was no one. Everyone was raising money. Everyone was, you know, growing their teams. It was very shiny, smoke and mirrors. And then I felt really dumb for what I was doing. Like, you know, I was going to the kitchen at midnight making dough. I was packing orders in my driver's seat, and I felt very alone and isolated. And I thought that what I was doing was wrong. So that was kind of one of the reasons why I started putting out content, because I'm like, can I just, you know, make others feel like they're doing things the right way? There's no right or wrong way. Like there's their own right. Like you have your own path, and it's okay to be scrappy and, you know, go to corporate offices and steal cardboard boxes from their recycling bins. Like, you know what I mean? Like do things like that. So I was like, if I can be that person for someone and show people that, yeah, you can be scrappy AF and like figure it out. And you don't need like all this money and all these people to help you grow a business. You can do it on your own. You just have to be willing to. So that like the need of showing that and making people feel less alone was more powerful than me being scared of like what people would think or me being uncomfortable, because I saw how much value it added when I started putting it out. And even with customers, like they would message me and be like, oh wow, I didn't realize like what went into building a business. This makes me like respect you a lot more and like have more sympathy too for businesses when things go wrong, right? And that's like a whole nother whole nother subject too. I had just like a quick story time. So I didn't do shelf life testing. I'm not a food scientist when I launched the brand. And I remember I was storing the dough in my bedroom, like in boxes. It was in boxes. And I was like, it should be fine. Like, it doesn't need to be refrigerated for like, a 24 hours or whatever. And I bubble wrapped all of them and I shipped them to my first retail store in like 2019 or 2020. And the retailer, I don't think they put them in the fridge and then they shipped them to their customers, but they didn't unwrap them and they had gone all moldy. They were like hairy.
Oh, no.
They were like stuffed animal. Yeah, they were like furry. And then that was my brand, right? Like I had just launched and the product sold out on the website. As soon as it dropped, it sold out. We sold hundreds of jars. So imagine hundreds of jars being shipped out and people opening them and being like, what is this?
Oh, no.
So I personally like emailed all of them and I went on and I was like talking on like my social media, explaining what had happened. And everyone's like, okay, like I get it. Like they were more understanding and there were some people that were angry, right? There will be, but for the most part, people were accepting and they're like, okay, like if you make it right, then, like I'll become a customer and like, so I think that's a huge thing too, because we do screw up as business owners, things happen. And I think if you just communicate with your customers openly and not try to hide stuff, like that'll put you ahead with everything.
That's such a good message. I feel like that kind of having that vulnerability. Yeah, a lot of people I feel like prefer to help you or help small business and kind of work with you. So they're going to be a lot more flexible when things do go wrong by giving them that extra bit of vulnerability.
Yeah.
I think what's crazy too, if you look on, LinkedIn or whatever, I completely understand kind of your take that like you don't see a lot of that. Like you see a lot of VC money and you see a lot of, here's all my big successes. You don't see a lot of the like kind of scrappy marketing or scrappy AF. So I think that's really helpful to like have that piece. And I think the brands that we talk to, that's probably more the, common story than the other side of it of, hey, we got all this money and we're doing this or that and it's all going well. So it's really, really cool to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, Erica, this has been really, really helpful. And I feel like we covered a ton of ground. So I'm sure we'll, have to have another conversation in the future about all of this. As we kind of move forward here, can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yeah, so Erica Rankin on LinkedIn, and then our business handle is Eat Brodo, and then our website's eatbrodo.com, and you can't buy online yet, but we're working on it.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely be keeping an eye out for that, and certainly once you get down to the US as well.
Yeah.
Did we get to talk about the Kickstarter campaign yet?
No.
Can we have a quick plug for it?
Let's do it.
Yeah. So that's like it actually hasn't been planned yet, but that is going to be for the new cookies that are launching in the US. So I'm going to put together a campaign for that and do like a pre-sale and get people excited for that. And then that'll be all coming together like probably closer to the end of 2023. But I do have like a wait list. So if you like go to our website, we have like a cookie club wait list. And then from there, I'm going to have like exclusive offers and stuff and a fun program for people just because they've waited years, right? So it's only fair.
That's awesome. Yeah, definitely keep us up to date on that. We'd love to share it out as that becomes available.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, it's Andy. I'm here with Percy, the original PPC Pitbull. Thanks for checking us out today. If you're ready to take the next step in your digital marketing journey, come on over to ppcpitbulls.com and book a free strategy session. We'll take a few minutes to get to know you and your brand, and I promise you'll leave with actionable insights that you can implement today. Working together, we're going to get you on the right track towards reaching your unique e-commerce goals.